I'm delighted to be joined today by our guest presenter, Jesper Østergaard. Hi, Jesper.
Hello.
And Jesper's going to run through some slides, and then we'll take some listeners' questions at the end. We'll come to those later on, but we'll also be having a little look at the survey that we did in registration, which was related to how many service desks, how many of you out there actually using are still experiencing high volumes of password reset calls. So I think Jesper's going to say a little bit more about that in a second. So over to you, Jesper.
Thanks, Zoe. Thank you for the opportunity, and welcome everybody for this for this session this Friday afternoon. I'm just going to take you through the agenda for the afternoon, or the next hour at the most. So first of all, why are we here? Looking into also a bit of categorization discussion on where this emerged from and where it has gone or will go potentially. Then we'll back a bit and take a look at the basics in the password arena. Tool support. You will need some sort of technology if you want to automate things. So what to look for there. And then once you have acquired that, automation best practice I've set. So what to be aware of, where to put your focus, and to make sure that you're going to be successful down the line in your efforts to take away the password calls, which this is all about. And finally, there's going to be some time, hopefully, for some questions. If you have that, by all means, forward that to SDI and during the presentation. Then there'll be there's going to be a Q&A session, a discussion at the end of the session. So first of all, why are we here? Well, you all basically everybody were answering questions on during the registration for the call or for this webinar, telling what this problem amounts to in each and every service desk, and the stats, the results from this survey are pretty clear in the sense that there are still, this is still the number one reason to call the service desk, the main topic or issue, or service request raised to the service desk. 90% of you has said that you have more than 10% of calls are for password reset or password related calls, which also means that 10% of you will have less than 10% of the calls, which means that's probably something you have been addressed or for other reasons. 50% of you has mentioned you will have more than 30% of the calls are for password resets, and about a third has more than 40%, and then we have on the top end about 14% of the survey SMDs had more than 60% of the calls related to passwords. So I mean, it is still a big issue, something that concerns, something that takes there's a lot of burden in the service desk handling that. So that's basically, I guess, why we're here. And from my own perspective, why am I here? I've been in the business, systems management, identity and access management business for quite some years. Actually founded a consultancy, identity management consultancy in 2000. And in 2005, first as a daughter company, a password management software company, which then led to an IPO in 2007. The year after, we actually sold to PVC, so it was from there on a pure play software company, FastPass Corp. And from 2012, I more or less went back, so to speak, to the consultancy area in taking over Secorigo as an independent consultancy. That's basically the my background for talking to you here today. All right. I'd also did a few publications, one of which has been made available from the SDI in their support world. There are the links to them at the lower right corner, one for support world HDI and another one in HDI support world. So by all means, take a look at those if you want to have this bit of a discussion about self-service and more particularly also password self-service. From a category perspective, it actually origins from the identity management, identity and access management space, where it was a subset, a feature subset of the identity solutions. Hence, why we started working with that in my former company. Actually, also, which is probably more or less one of the reasons why it was such a pain. Identity is more or less a back office operation, handling users and access rights for application owners, system administrators handling that, whereas the identity management space was more type of where you were hitting the end users. So a big portion of the business case from identity management solutions were actually coming from the passwords self-service area. Typically about 40% of the business case actually came from that. But from a category perspective only, then that's where it actually historically started. I always claim that it should probably rather be, or it has more logic adherence to the service management space, either as an incident or as a service request. I don't know if any of you have been in this. There's a good discussion on the SDI, on LinkedIn, the SDI group on LinkedIn, about categorization of password reset requests, whether that belong to the incident or service request category. That's another story. But from a service perspective, at least it should be, in my view, be part of the service management space. It was actually also taken on at one point from SDI that this password self-service should be a requirement when you're looking for service management solutions. SDI did that, I think, 1 or 2 years in their annual bias guide for service management solutions, whereas HDI always had a password self-service as a standalone category. And yeah, you could always argue that if you are part of a bigger solution stack, then you probably don't have the right attention to be able to get what you really want. That's one of the concerns or the issues we've had over the years, is that if you have, as part of an identity management RFP, a single question, do you provide password self-service, yes or no? It would typically be a yes you could answer, but that's the level of information or prerequisite shooting for, particularly in handling the password reset, the password self-service features. So from that perspective, it would probably also be relevant to have it as a category on its own, but that's a different story altogether. And finally, there's a lot of self-service solutions. There's a lot of focus on enabling the users to do more themselves. So probably that is a part where it would naturally belong, enabling the users to do things themselves. But that's just a theoretical discussion, if you like, whether it should be categorized one or the other. So let's take a look at the basics about passwords as a start. Passwords is one of the 3 methods for authenticating users, something you know or you're supposed to know, memorize. The other category would be something that you have, something you can carry with you, like a token, a card, a smart card, a mobile phone, something that you carry with you. And the third category method would be something that we're talking biometric stuff here in terms of fingerprint scanners, iris scanners, taking people's blood type or something else. Not sure if that's really taken anywhere so far, but that's the three categories. And then of course the combination of any of those would provide what we call strong authentication. So you would take two methods into usage and have a much more secure verification of the user. But that's just more or less the basics. And what it provides you, this user authentication, is access, or in terms that you can't either remember your password or provide a PIN number for a token or what have you, then you don't get access. So it's like that. You may end up in a situation where you don't can get access to your computer, and that's the nature of this area. Over the years, there's been a lot of scandals, so to speak, about and also discussions about the weaknesses and issues with passwords, and for most of the time for good reasons, in the sense that once big databases of users, user account passwords are leaked, or somebody has gotten access to that, then it has quite dramatic. It is not too good for anybody, either for the provider or the user themselves. So it has severe impact if that happens. That's probably the main issue, is that when you do get those hacks, it's probably thousands or millions of users that are compromised from that. Whereas if you look at it from a single user perspective, then I would claim that the passwords are actually better than their reputation. And even so, some of the other upsides are that they're quite easy to restore, getting access, regain access. So if you've got your password, you can get another one basically, and then get on. Whereas if you've lost your token, if your iris scanner doesn't work or something else, then it's more difficult to restore the access. So the main thing to look into is probably more into the policies. One is to establish good policies for user access, for password authentication. Another thing is also enforcing those policies. That's both are equally important, whereas the user behavior is more in terms of culture. How are you then handling this information? So if you are having strict policies, password policies, then you might write passwords down on a yellow sticker or something like that. So that's a third level also, where you would need to look into. It's not something about the actual password authentic or the password methodology in itself. It's more in terms of how the users are handling it, how the organization, the company is providing policy and enforcing them. And in the end, it all comes down to what level of security is needed in order to have the level of security in your company as you wish, and then balance that toward what does it cost. If we have very strict policies and then the users have difficulties in getting access to their computers, and the service desk get burdened with too many calls. So that's basically the balance you need to look into in the password area, basically, especially. It's going to be too wide to cover that more in this session, but I would recommend you, if you want to take a deeper dive, there's a good publication from NIST 800/118. There's a lot of good. good discussion about the ups and downs and the pros and cons and tips and tricks in handling passwords. So you do help yourself there. From my point of view, one of the logic areas is automation. That'll help and give you a better position addressing some of the issues we've just discussed. So automation is the mitigation, would be my recommendation for that. But before you start, there's a preparation. Thorough preparation is essential, and this obviously from several perspectives, but you should never forget, and that's true for any self-service initiative you have. You are hitting all the end users and asking them to do things differently, to do things they're not used to. So it does take some preparation and taking well care of the implementation. Helping the users is key in terms of getting to success. So before you start, make sure of that, and also don't be over optimistic in what you would be shooting for. So do take some time to define what's the scope for this and where would we aim to be once we've implemented and we are up and running. First of all, how do we look into what systems we would cover? Sorry. There's also in this respect you should start from looking at the business, looking at where's the impact. So from your service statistics, where are the probably 80% of your calls, where are they coming from? Are they coming from system XYZ? Well, then that would be a good place to start. And sometimes you would be asked from the users, we just want single sign-on. Just bear in mind that single sign-on is not a requirement, it's not a need. It's something that you provide them to fulfill a need. So single sign-on is a solution for a basic user need, getting simple or easy access to their systems. Same with password synchronization. It's also making things easier for the users. And once again, be aware that as good from a user perspective, this may be also be aware that there are security concerns that you might want to consider once you go down that route of handling access to multiple systems from one system. And there's a FIPS publication 119 that discusses that also in more detail. I'll leave you to that if you want to also discuss some of the technologies and the toolings that are available instead of covering it right here. And then again, the targets, don't say that we don't expect that you'll have 100% self-service. If you can reach 90% via self-service, then you're well off, and that should be again a realistic target, something that you would be using for your business case. And that's basically the next step, is also to make sure that this is financially viable. So with the statistics you can get from the service desk, try and build your business case around that. There's different areas to look into. There's the direct cost from having taken away calls. There's less calls to the service desk, so you can take away calls. You might even know what a single call to the service desk costs. You can calculate that. Also, having people wait in line and cannot get access to their work, stuff like that. And there's some different things also to look into that are not hard dollar, but more in the soft dollar savings category. But make sure that you build a solid business case also at the very, very beginning before you go anywhere. Then you might want to discuss a bit about how you want to deliver that. Was it something you would run by yourself? Would you want somebody to run it for you? Typically, you see a lot of service desk outsourcing to other countries, trying to drive down cost. Another route would typically be to automate. And again, if you want to automate, then you even want to consider if you want to do that yourself in-house or have somebody else do it for you. Same with the actual technology platform. Is that something you want to run on your own in your own data center, or something you want to get from any outsource or a cloud provider? There's a licensing perspective also. You typically will see that there's different licensing models where you can either have a one-time fee in the perpetual license, or you can have a subscription fee, which will correspond more to your operations budget. So that's also something to consider. And even you see some vendors that are, we either have a license model that's more in the cloud route, it's actually transaction based, so you don't pay for the actual solution, but you just pay for pay as you go, or pay per password reset, so to speak. So that there are different considerations in this area also. And of course, once you start looking at tool support, there's, as I can't emphasize that enough, you should really take your time to look into all the requirements that you have. In FastPass Corp, we had a buyer's guide, which was a 10-page for password self-service solution. That's gives you an idea that there are many areas that you need to look into. And finally, you need to have management buy-in. I really hate to put that down here, but as in most projects, it's important to have people at a higher place in the organization endorse what this does, because you are really talking to all the end users, and getting management to understand this is a good solid project, there's good means for it in terms of it's financially viable, but also asking the end users to do things differently is key. So yeah, also in password self-service area, management buy-in is key, I believe. Okay. So once you then got some tool support, then you have your actual implementation going ahead, and the 5-step plan for success is laid down here. First of all, as we are asking the users to do things differently, we need to motivate them. We need to make them buy in to what we're doing here. User adoption, getting the users boarded is the second step. How do we get access to the password self-service solution? How do you authenticate the users toward the password self-service solution? And finally, once it's implemented or up and running, how do we look at it on a daily basis and in operations? Right. Motivation is key. It's basically telling the users from, and you might want to have a CEO or a CIO or what have you, some high-profile person in the company, really ask to endorse this and say, well, why are we doing this in this company? Why are we doing this for saving the company money, which is a valid reason? Then it's one argument. But another one is also that you are actually doing it for helping the users to be more self-sufficient, and enabling them to do more giving them access at any time, and not having to wait in the service desk for just regaining access to any system they have. So, you know, give a good solid reason why this is a good project, why this is a good initiative from the management. And if you are considering if your scope covers more systems, typically maybe 3 or 4 systems that stands for maybe 80% of the calls, then it has more value for the end user than if you have just a self-service solution just for one system. And also in the motivation categories, the better service, we are now providing you 24/7, whereas you might have a 9-to-5 service desk or something. So it is actually better for the users, and it's even also faster. In terms of password change, well, then you may have a policy to change your passwords every 3 or 6 or 12 months on several systems. Well, having implemented such a solution, you can change your password once, and it kicks out to all the systems that is part of this solution. So password change is also easier down the line. And of course, many more could be considered in the terms of motivating the users to embrace this initiative. To get the users to actually enroll, embark, and enter into the system, we actually have 2 routes for that. You can discuss before, motivate them, or we can force them. Either case, it should be automated. It should be something. It should be a task that some administrator or people in the project organization, what have you, has as a daily task, trying to, getting more and more on board. It should be fully automated. First of all, you need to discover the users. Nowadays, you probably have all of your users in AD, and if that's the base user database in most companies, and if you want to cover more systems, you also need to go and look for the users in all of the systems, SAP, iSeries, what have you, to discover that as well. First, you need to send out the email, as discussed before. High profile person would send out an invitation to enroll and to onboard in this new system. Then you set up automated reminders and warnings. So if you have a policy, you should actually have a policy for that. Main issue, the main concern is obviously the current users that you need to convince. If you have new users, they should be enrolled directly, and that's seldomly the problem. But the existing users is typically the where you find it hardest. And as an example of a policy, could be like this: send out an invitation to all the users and set up a policy that they should have a reminder email once every week. It could also be via SMS, but then 5 or 8 reminders, what have you. And then you'll see, as you get those reminders out, that well, the first invitation, maybe 10-15% will enroll, and as reminders continues going out, you'll see the enrollment rates going up. You might end up with maybe only 60-80% of the users having enrolled after even a longer period. Then you have a second opportunity is to have a pop-up screen or something happening. An email can easily be left in the inbox. I've seen that before. I'll just delete it. Whereas if you have things happening on the screen, a pop-up box or something, then the users will need to pay attention to that. And then in the final route, once you've also had that run for a period of time, maybe 5 or 10 reminders, then you might, in the end, say, well, now we have 92% of the users enrolled. Do we want to have the last portion around? Then we can actually set up that they need to enroll before they can work with their computer. That's an example of a policy, but it's something to obviously discuss with your management, how that should be, what the policy should be like. Yeah, if you have the motivational route, maybe 80–90% after 3 months, but again, you can also choose to enforce things, but it's all for discussion. Right, I already covered that. So next thing is accessibility. It's a special characteristic about password self-service solution in the sense that it's not something that it's not a solution that you're using every day. Hopefully, you don't forget your password every day. So it is a special situation that maybe it's something that you need maybe 3 or 4 times a year, or even less sometimes. And the other thing is that if you forget your password, if you can't remember your password, you can't get access to your computer. So it has quite severe impact on the actual user. So it is a special situation. And let me give to you here Darkbird's password recovery service. So Darkbird is having too many passwords. He can't forget. He can't memorize it. So he needs some help. And obviously he needs a PIN code or some sort of verification to regain access. So it is a catch-22 situation in many ways, as Darkbird rightly encounters here. So in order to avoid that, or then you have the you need to make the passwords solution available from many places. In a Windows 7 screen, it could be like this, having a self-service or an active area on the Windows 7 GUI, where you can just hit that and then go to the self-service solution. Let me see. Also making it available from if you have an intranet or a self-service area, making it available from there is also logic. If you have mobile devices, also giving that as an option. I mean, basically anywhere that the users could expect to find such service, make it available there, so it's easy to find for the user once the situation occurs that forgot his password. That's a special case in this area where you have, if you have a domain PC and you're sitting outside the domain, well, then you're really stuck. So it is actually a requirement for your requirements list, also to make sure that PCs outside the domain are able to get access to the self-service solution. Other than that, you'd need to carry your PC along with you back to the onto the domain, so you can restore your password, restore access. Right. So the actual now we've hit the button, so to speak, or the link to the solution. Now the next thing we need to do is to verify the user, authenticate the user against the solution. So how do we do that? You have different means of doing that. The typical route is a challenge response question. That is, it's been known for years as a method. There are also considerations in using challenge response question that you need to take care of. Don't want to spend time on this webinar, but again, I'll make a reference for you, another NIST publication, or publication that Microsoft has published also, and it's just a link down here to a PDF where you can take a good look at how challenge response considerations when you're setting up challenge response in terms of how many questions, type of questions, etc. You should probably really aim for having have a flexible means to this. So questions could be one route. It could also be sending a pin code to a mobile phone, or if you have access to another email, it'll of course then the user will need to have a second access to another browser if that route should be viable, which is not always the case. Physical tokens can also be used on biometrics, but having more options, be as flexible as possible will give you better opportunity to actually have the user stay on the self-service track, which is what we're aiming for. If we are handling passwords for systems from high-risk systems, then obviously strong authentication should be considered. So you both need to answer questions and have a PIN code sent, or any combination of these type of authentication. It's also the case if you have high-risk users, the management of the board, then you might consider having strong authentication in any case. But this is all down to policy, how it could be built via authentication profiles and stuff within the AD. So it's not shouldn't be a administrative heavy task. It should be all set up via policies. Right, now we should now be having implemented, having sent out, having people enrolled, having the people that embraces technology, embraces new solutions, are up and running. But as you probably reckon with a new system, there are still people that are ignorant, or people that didn't enroll into the system, or on a daily basis, you think you can pick a good question that you can memorize, then you forget that answer again, or for any other reason. So you must just anticipate that they will still call, even though they have the self-service solution made available for them. So important thing here is that if you do want to have a successful project, then first policy update I'd say is don't ever give a password over the phone again, and you obviously can only do that if you have if you are able to support the users, even if they can't, if they're not able to use the self-service, then you need to get them back on the self-service track again. But first of all, update your policy in the service desk is the first step. Now, the user that can't figure out the self-service solution, well, then you need to verify again. Well, you always already done that, obviously, in the past, but if you can do that directly from the solution, either from looking up information from the AD, if they provided, if they actually did enroll, they provided answers to their private questions, then you can also verify via that, or you can maybe send a pin code to their mobile phones. There are different routes for user verification. but that's more or less as it is today, but you need to do it directly from the solution actually. So change of policy is important. If you want to, support this initiative, don't give a password over the phone again. And if you do that, and you have, make sure that the users are well taken care of in all aspects, then you should expect over a 6-month period, at least 90% of the calls converted to self-service, and that's basically the only way you can measure the success of a project, is how many calls has been converted to self-service, not how many that the system was implemented. It runs well, the user can use it if they like, but they don't. It's really down to the only KPI is what's the level of self-service after a given period. Right. I think that more or less concludes what I have prepared in my slide deck here. So I think maybe if there are there any questions that came along? Yes.
Yes, so questions. First one is about rolling out self-service solutions across different applications. It says, if the user was authenticated through answering a security password, would they get an option of which password they wanted to change?
Yes, that could be. I mean, there are different implementation scenarios. So the one is where you actually reset the password in the solution, and then that is forwarded to all the systems in the password synchronization scenario. But you might have a scenario where you say, I don't want to have the same password on AD and on iSeries, for instance, for logic reasons. Then you need to say, well, this particular password reset is for my iSeries, or this is for SAP, and that's so. From a security perspective, that would make sense to have different passwords, and then obviously the solution should support that. Okay,
great. And there's another one here that asks about the frequency of password change. You did mention it briefly in your presentation, but is there a general kind of rule of thumb as to frequency, or what would you say? How should people work that out?
To the security CSO or something.
Yeah,
how frequently? I mean, it's one of the most widely used security measures is having people change their password, and to my opinion is that it's probably in terms of impact, how much it actually adds to the level of security, then it doesn't bring a whole lot. So probably one of the areas where I would be say, well, you maybe don't need to change your password every 30 or 90 days, whereas password length, password complexity will basically, from a security perspective, give you more.
Yeah, so to advise users and sort of set guidelines around making sure they've got really secure passwords, as opposed to just changing it frequently, basically, is much better.
Yes, I'm at risk here, because this is this is for the security officers to basically decide. But from a general perspective, my recommendation would be to rather have strong, long passwords than at a password frequency too high. Yeah.
And I mean, there's a similar question along the same lines that asks whether self-service solutions generally allow for these kind of customizations. So presumably, if you implement a self-service solution, you've got options to set it up slightly differently and tailor it to your organization.
Well, there are. How do I compare? You can have one wheel bike, and there's a Rolls Royce, and there's everything in between. It's all out there. So you really that's the.
So look for the best solution that fits your.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Make your requirements, make clear what your requirements are, and then you know, keep looking until you find the solution that supports that.
Okay. Are there any sort of services or you know, comparison tools that you know of that people can use to help them look for those kind of tools?
I think there's several available. I must admit it's been a while since I've looked at it, but I know at one point SDI made those available. I'm sorry, I don't have it on top of my mind.
So yeah, so searching for companies that do offer those kinds of services and things like that would be a possible route. Okay, looking again at the audience questions, there's another one. There was a comment, in fact, actually, sorry, that was made during the registration questions by somebody from Malaysia who was commenting that for their organisation, resetting LAN ID passwords for users who are not connected to Office LAN is something that they don't do. Is that something? Is that not something that you find with many organisations?
It was actually submitted. So I've shown that it's not raised as a question. It's actually more like a comment. So yeah. It's the situation. If you don't have access to your LAN, then you can't reset your passwords. So that is obviously not possible.
Yeah.
So if that's how that should understand that, then it's obviously clear that you can't do that. But as I mentioned in the presentation also, that you are actually with certain solutions you can actually even though you're outside the domain, if you're able to get access to the self-service solution, then you can reset the passwords even if you're outside the domain.
Yeah, so that's as a way around another thing that self-service tools can offer, really.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then, I mean, the only other comment that we've got here from the registration questions was two separate people commenting that customers continue to call, as you said in your, one of your last slides, and also about people not following process. Now, I guess that could be people on the service desk as well as users. So again, it's going back to your points about using motivation, really, I suppose, and making sure everybody knows what the new processes are and communicating the benefits.
Yeah, obviously, and hoping that the users will take it on and be, nice, good users doing what they're told. But obviously, there's the other side of it, which was mentioned as I mentioned with the service desk. Very important is that once you've implemented this, you should never give out a password over the phone. So if they're not following the process, well, they shouldn't have an alternative. Well, the alternative is not to get access to their computer, which I assume they will not. But if they can't do anything else, you can call the help desk, and then they can get them back on the self-service track. It's like that.
So help them to use self-service. Yes.
Yeah. If you give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. If you learn him to fish, you can feed him for life. So they should be actually.
Yeah. So the analysts as well have to be taught that that's their role is changing slightly in that respect also.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's all of our listeners' questions. So thank you so much, Jesper, for presenting today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having it.
Thank you. And we will make a copy of this recording available. So thanks so much, and thanks for everybody listening. And we'll speak to you. We'll have another webinar for you soon, next month. Thanks, Jesper.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.